Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Penning. And welcome to Draft Week. We are here. We've previewed over 100 players. We're going to get ready to learn about some new ones this week. It is Draft Week, Justin. Hey, how you doing? And we got to talk about Kadarius Toney trade rumors, which I wasn't really looking forward to, but we have to do it.
Yeah, this is a weird kind of ep because I'm super excited for it's draft week, the week that, we've been working basically, this entire 2022. Hey, take out the 2 or 3 4-week period where we're looking for a head coach and GM. But I mean, this kind of started a few weeks before the Senior Bowl, right? When we're doing that prep and then we go to Alabama. Now we're here. It is kind of clouded by Kadarius Toney and his status being up in the air as a New York Football Giant. But I'm excited to see you. I think tomorrow we'll be seeing each other.
Yeah. Tomorrow when you listen to this, I will be in, or no, the day after you're listening to this, I'll be in New York. So we're going to talk about offensive tackles. We saved the most important position for last, and it's the position I know the most, so it's going to be pretty interesting. But we're going to start off with this Kadarius Toney stuff. So we actually didn't hit much on it on the podcast last week about him missing the voluntary minicamp. So Pat Leonard comes out Friday night with a report that the Giants are shopping Kadarius Toney. So I actually asked around and tried to figure out, get to the bottom of this. So I've got a couple things. This is an exclusive. I haven't seen anyone else put this out. Maybe somebody else said it by the time this podcast out. Kadarius Toney came to New York on Saturday. Now, I don't know if it was meeting with the coaching staff. You can, put 2 and 2 together. But he did get to New York, New Jersey area on Saturday. So there's that. The Giants, I think shopping is the wrong word. I think Pat Leonard was very wrong in making it. He made it out to be like the Giants are just looking to move on from Kadarius Toney. But they are listing the trade offers, and they are frustrated with Kadarius Toney. That part is real. If they get the right offer, they'll take it. But they 100% are frustrated with Kadarius Toney right now, Justin. But there is a simple fix to this. The Giants don't trade Kadarius Toney, and please let this be a wake-up call for Toney to just you don't even need to be more mature, but just take the Giants more seriously. That's the simple fix to all this, Justin.
Yeah, show up. Show up and be a part of stuff. And, hey, you go back, and yes, there's stuff that's out of his control, but at the end of the day, show up and be more about it. Because at the end of the day, we're not in the building. We don't know everything that's going on. But clearly, the dedication level of where the Giants want Kadarius Toney to be at football-wise and where Kadarius Toney actually is, there is a disconnect there. It's clear. You can be a KT stan. I think we are. We are Kadarius Toney supporters, but you could be an absolute stan, or you could be a hater, and you could have the shades of Odell, right? You could be on either side. But it is clear that there is a disconnect from what the team wants him to be and then where he actually is right now. That's the reality.
Yeah, and it goes back to last year missing the OTAs. We love, it's fun to talk about him punching a cowboy, but dumb stuff like that. And something that gets left out of this is when you pair it, he has real injury concerns. He had injuries to, I think, 6 different body parts last year. So some serious injury issues paired with, you don't know how dedicated he is. And again, people brought up, it's voluntary. This is about a lot more than just voluntary workouts. But this is about him.
The Giants are not, again, not shopping. The Giants are not taking calls on Kadarius Toney because he missed a voluntary workout. This is that was not the camel. That was not, it's part of it, but it's not the straw that broke the camel's back. There had to be things going on heading back to last year that this is a thing that is kind of stewing.
Yeah, but I actually view it as it is the straw that broke the camel's back. It's been this little stuff, the injuries, and then it's okay, new staff, new regime, and you just don't show up, and there wasn't good communication. He wasn't able to get a playbook. And again, you don't just read a playbook like a novel. It is installed. It is taught, so the idea that they just gave him the playbook and he can study it down in Florida. No, he's gotten bad advice from trainers and coaches who, people in his life telling him that he doesn't need to go and do that type of stuff. And he has been frustrating for the new coaching staff. It is as simple as that, and they didn't draft him. Joe Shane didn't draft him. Brian Dable didn't, bang on the table at the Senior Bowl asking for Kadarius Toney. So, where I'm at right now is I hope he's not traded. But if the Giants do trade Kadarius Toney, which I do not think is going to happen, I would not bet on that. But you couldn't help but not understand it with the way things are going. And again, this is all the stuff we see on the outside. There's always more to the story that is hidden. That is hidden from the public with players. Okay, there's a lot. And there's players that you might look at as clean cut, perfect guy. And behind the scenes, it's no, this guy doesn't buy in. He doesn't work hard. But they handle the media well, and they post workouts on social media and stuff. But Kadarius Toney hasn't bought into being a New York Giant, and that's a fact.
You worded it perfectly, where I would be extremely disappointed and depressed if Kadarius Toney was traded, but also it is something that is extremely, extremely understandable. Now, the more that people come out and defend Kadarius Toney on Kadarius Toney's kind of team, whether that's Coach Steph Brown, whether that's Danny Hustleboy.
Danny, come on, dude.
Who is this guy?
This is not good. This Danny Boy Hustle Hard.
Danny Hustle Hard.
That's so disrespectful.
His driver, who has a shady past, by the way.
We are a pro Danny Boy Hustle Hard podcast. Do not slander Danny Boy Hustle Hard. He is the GOAT.
But the more that people on his team come out and defend him, I think the worse it looks.
Danny Boy is Danny Boy. That's not a Kadarius Toney guy. Danny Boy is his own person. He's not a Kadarius Toney guy. He's essentially a New York Giant guy. But Steph Brown has been kind of quiet since it happened, besides reposting it. But yeah, it's Kadarius Toney's immature. Okay, and let's be quite honest. He's not the smartest guy in the world. I actually do like a lot about his personality. And people compare him to Odell. I think they're totally different personalities. But at the same time, they're totally different players at this point too. And Kadarius Toney can and kind of is good. The issue is staying on the field. Whenever he's been on the field, he's been a good player.
Yeah.
And he should be he could be the focal point of this offense, the straw that stirs the drink for this offense. He has that ability, and he's shown that to a point. But again, you have to buy in, and he's a player who needs work in some parts of his game too. It's not like this. Again, this isn't like Odell headaches where he's working, but he's like Odell. There's no doubt he worked his ass off. This is questions of dedication with Kadarius Toney.
All right, so hopefully this is a Pat Leonard coming out that Brian Flores is the favorite for the Giants job 24 hours before Brian Dable takes the Giants job to put pressure on Brian Dable to take the Giants job. Hopefully this is one of those situations.
Is that Leonard heard from another team that they got a call, there was calls about Toney and took that and was okay, they are actively shopping him. That's what my guess would be.
Yeah, I don't have a big reaction to this. Gun to my head, Kadarius Toney is a Giant this year.
Yes, I firm unless there's another incident. But again, I bet now we don't have any voluntary OTAs until I think June.
When's the mandatory?
It's in June, late June.
Okay.
So I don't. But if he but I think hopefully this was kind of a wake up call for Kadarius Toney.
Hopefully.
All right, Justin, before we get into these offensive tackles, which is what we want to talk about, this episode was brought to you by Jason Lepre, Jason, and then Alvin Maley. I need to mail some stickers to some of our Patreons, but I don't have any stickers, so I had to order some new ones. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, don't worry, it's going to come.
Well, that's one of the perks of being a Patreon member, is that Bobby Skinner will send you he'll mail you some stickers and magnets in the mail to you. Plus, twice a month, you have an opportunity to win some shirts, and you get to hang out with us live while we record the shows. Hey, we're going to be going pretty late. Night one reaction, or even, hey, after day 3 on Sunday, we're going to be having our, just our reaction to the overall draft as a whole. You're going to want to be there and hang out with us when we're recording live and chat with us. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. Thanks for our patrons.
All right, let's get into the offensive tackles, and I want to be a little more conversational with these guys, especially at the top. So I'm going to go kind of quickly through Evan Neal and Ikem Ekwonu, and then we could talk about them.
So Giants fans know who, I can imagine, we have a very smart and intelligent base that follows us, Bobby Skinner. I can imagine if you're a Giants fan and you're sick and tired of this offensive line being broken, and you're sick and tired of this offense not being explosive, you have been looking at these offensive tackles for a couple months now. So let's talk, Bobby.
Okay, so the offensive tackle one debate is between Evan Neal and Ikem Ekwonu and no one else. I will say that flat out as we go into it. And again, this right tackle spot is the biggest need on the New York Giants. I am desperately hoping that one of these guys is a New York Giant. One of these two. I don't want anyone else. I want one of these two guys to be a New York Giant come Friday morning. And so we'll start with Evan Neal, who's been like the consensus top guy going into this, and then we'll talk about how we rate these guys. Evan Neal, obviously from out of Alabama, 6'7", 337 pounds, just a beautiful frame. 3-year starter at Justin. People forget that he started at left guard, and then he started right tackle in this past year, left tackle. So he's moved around, and I think that needs to be a part of the discussion with Evan Neal too. It's like, don't forget, he hasn't started the same spot in 2 consecutive years since high school. For his frame, his athleticism is really good, and then his overall strength just shows up throughout his game, whether it's in the pass game or in the run game. The one thing of weakness you could say is his balance isn't great, especially in the run game. As a pass protector, he is the best pass blocker in this draft, and he is the most polished. He is he is a much more polished pass blocker than Charles Cross, who we will get into. He stays square. His feet are very smooth in his pass sets. Sometimes can open up a little bit, but overall pretty good. He gets good depth. He gets good hand placement. And his punch, his hand placement and punch is the best out of this entire class. There's times where he can lunge a little bit, which will lead him, vulnerable to inside counters. But those times are very rare when you see them. I think he can be a little better versus those inside counters. And when his hands are on, guys, he grips on, and the hand, he knows how to work his hands. His hand, that stuff is real. He just locks on the guys. I think he's a high IQ player picking stuff up in the run game. His strength is great. Oh, and again, in the pass game, he's never going to be a victim to the bull rush. Never. He'll lose a little ground, but he's never going to lose a lot of ground or just get bullied as a bull rush, or at least he didn't in the college game. In the run game, I think he needs to get quicker in his get-off. His first 2 steps can be kind of good, but then they stop on contact. But again, he has that ability to roll his hips through and get good movement. And then when he does, when his punch lands well with good placement, it brings power and he just resets the edge. But he can get top heavy and lean on guys and lose balance or get shed inside. So you'll see some ugly reps from Evan Neal in the run game. Should I go straight into Ikem Ekwonu?
No, I have some questions on Evan Neal as a player, and then we'll talk about Ekwonu, and then we'll compare the two. His feet getting too skinny in the run game, right? Where, his first 2 steps are kind of good out of his stance, but then he brings his feet too tight, and he plays a little too high overall, right? How can that issue be fixed in the NFL? Is it going to take time? Is it a quick fix? What's your take on that?
I think stability at playing at one spot now, again, with the Giants moving back to right tackle is something. In fact, he actually looked better at right tackle in the run game than he did at left tackle when you watch.
He was pushing Aziz out of frame.
There was times where he just dominated Aziz Ojulari.
And that didn't happen a lot.
Yeah, it's about getting, he's just teaching, roll your feet through the block. Don't stop your feet on contact and keep them wide, because what happens is he gets, step 1, step 2 lands, and then the feet stop on contact. Well, now you're kind of, you're at a stalemate, and your feet are getting skinny. You're churning. And again, he's big, so his pad level is going to be a little higher than most guys.
And something that I found, he's very, very good at winning at the point of attack. This is whether it's as a run blocker or also in pass pro. If he's not winning at the point of attack, what do his reps look like? Basically, if his hands aren't at a point where he can clamp down, mirror, do whatever he needs to do, what does he look like? And is he consistent enough in that area to always recover, to replant his hands, et cetera, et cetera? Because that's was something I saw in your film breakdown, where there were some questions of if he wasn't winning at that point, reps can look inconsistent.
Yeah, there's times like, when you look at versus Trayvon Walker, where Trayvon Walker would land those hands and kind of get a little pushback. But again, like he's just got such good core strength that even that pushback compared to other guys is nothing. And I think he does have, he needs to, work his hand fight a little better. But like that doesn't show up a lot. Like I think he's going to come in and be a really good pass blocker in the NFL day one.
I think there's a difference between physical and aggressive player. Is Evan Neal an aggressive player? He's certainly a physical player. But is he an aggressive player? Ekwonu is an aggressive player. Tyler Smith is an aggressive player. And do you think him not being an aggressive player, is that going to hurt him at all? Or no?
I do think it hurts him when you talk about the conversation between offensive tackle for OT1. Mm-hmm. Like you want to see a little more nastiness at times, especially in the run game. So yeah, that would be my biggest critique of his.
And one more question. Does Evan Neal's weight concern you at all?
No, he handles it. I mean, it's 337 pounds. I mean, that's pretty normal, especially for the 6'7" frame. That doesn't concern me even one bit.
All right.
Next, Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle from NC State, North Carolina State. 6'4", 310 pounds, 34-inch arms. 3-year starter at NC State, and he is extremely, extremely athletic and agile, and it just shows up, especially in the run game. Like, he moves amazing, whether you're wide zone, pulling, getting to the second level. And strength-wise, he's just a mauler with a nasty, nasty punch that stuns guys, whether it's in the run and the pass. Good balance. He's rarely on the ground. I actually think he has pretty good hand placement with his punch. And again, that punch is just devastating to move defenders. Like, he delivers knockout blows, and then you work him to the second level, like those knockout blows show up. In the pass, just in footwork in the pass game and the run game, it needs a lot of work. Like, his feet in the run get very sloppy, and there's crossover, which leads to him not sustaining blocks. In the pass pro, his feet click, and it makes him really vulnerable to inside counters. And his punch, on top of that, is much like Andrew Thomas. It lunges and he overextends, and it makes him vulnerable. Whether, to guys being able to, whether, get that outside shoulder and get around the corner, or working him inside, or just, working those, working his hands against him. That being said, with that footwork, the hands, like, he shows great recoverability despite those things. And that's what gives you hope and what makes you love Ikem Ekwonu, because it's like he has like some real issues, but those issues are some of the more fixable ones that you do see at the NFL level. And we're like, hey, tone it down a little bit, instead of like, hey, be a little more aggressive, get to, punch. When he is locked on, it's over in the pass game, and he's got great ability to mirror guys. And his strength is A+. I've never seen him suffer from a bull rush. Never. Like, there hasn't been one rep where I saw like, oh man, he got bull rushed. That being said, man, you watch Jermaine Johnson. If you go watch the breakdown, Jermaine Johnson won that battle. Okay, like, there was two very ugly reps, and then other ones where it's like, yeah, did this Jermaine Johnson pressure the QB? It's like, no, but Jermaine Johnson finished this rep better than Ikem Ekwonu finished it.
Lance Zierlein, one of the first sentences in his write-up on NFL.com is, a gentleman in class and killer on the grass, which I love that. I love when things rhyme.
He plays nasty. And there's plays where it's like, you just murdered this guy on the football field.
You get more excited for Ikem Ekwonu than Evan Neal. And I can hear it, by the way. I heard it in your breakdown, because I edit all your breakdowns, and I heard your voice throughout the entire thing. It was very much more excited for Ikem Ekwonu versus Evan Neal.
Well, let's talk about it. And I have went back and forth on offensive tackle 1 and 2. And what I did to land at who I want at OT1 and OT2 is went to past experiences. And I went back to the 2020 draft class. And honestly, Andrew Thomas is what is going to make me say Ikem Ekwonu is offensive tackle 1. Evan Neal is a more consistent player. He's more pro ready. As a pass blocker, he's going to have a better rookie year than Ikem Ekwonu. Like, flat out will have a better rookie year than Ikem Ekwonu. That's a guarantee. But Ekwonu has a higher ceiling, not a much higher ceiling, because Evan Neal is going to be, I think he has the ability to be a great player, but Ikem Ekwonu does have a higher ceiling, just the way he moves, the way he's able to move guys in the run game. And the things that he needs to fix are fixable, similar to Andrew Thomas, where it's like getting that punch, leading that punch. Now, his footwork isn't as good as Andrew Thomas's was coming out, but Andrew Thomas's footwork did need help. So he's got to get at that right tackle spot, work with Bobby Johnson to fix that footwork and fix that punch. And I think that stuff is not easily fixed. You got to put in the work. Like, there's no doubt you got to put in the work. But that's what lands me with Ekwonu at offensive tackle 1, because I see the higher ceiling and I see the room for growth. Because there's guys where it's like, oh, they can grow, but it's like, is this an area that's going to necessarily get better at the next level? And a lot of times it's not. So I kind of went back to the whole, Andrew Thomas versus Jedrick Wills, where it's like Jedrick Wills was much more polished, but it's like Thomas had much better results in college than Ekwonu, but it's like Thomas had good results and room to grow. So I'm kind of like going back to that past experience, like, okay, will Evan Neal have a better rookie year? Yes, I do think so. But I think Ekwonu is going to grow into that better player.
I think the difference between the top 2 tackles this year versus the top 2 tackles in 2020, I think these guys are a lot stronger. Especially their Ekwonu and Neal are both stronger than Jedrick Wills.
Yes, definitely better than Wills.
So I think that's the difference there. What it comes down to, Ekwonu makes you more excited, because I think Ekwonu has those plays where it's like, holy shit, he's leveling this guy, and Evan Neal doesn't have those plays where it's like, holy shit, look at how he's leveling this guy. It's similar to the Wills and Thomas discussion in the realm that Wills is so polished, Neal is so polished, and Ekwonu can grow. Thomas can grow. So that's the way that it's similar, but still, I mean, with both of these guys being so strong, you can bet on both of these guys. So I don't know. I went Wills in 2020. I kind of learned and grew from that. I get more excited for Ekwonu, but I think if you had to put a gun to my head, it would be Neal OT1 for me, because both of those, they are both so similar in their strength profile.
I have went back and forth on this a million times, because it's like, if you say, hey, we need someone to protect the passer tomorrow, Evan Neal's that guy. And Ikem Ekwonu has some ugly reps as a pass blocker. And it wasn't just versus Jermaine Johnson. He gave a sack in that game that was really ugly. But I think putting him at right tackle, which, your flaws could be hidden a little bit just because it's you're not protecting the blind side. I think that gives him some confidence to grow. I'm betting on Ekwonu getting better than Neal. But yeah, it's a tough decision. Like, I went back and forth on this. Like, I really struggled on who to make offensive tackle 1 for me.
And frankly, at least for me, I don't feel like I need to, as a fan, and even just as, sitting behind this microphone, I really don't feel the need I need to make that distinction, because what it's going to come down to, if the Giants are picking at 5 and both of them on the board, which they probably won't be, right? But the Giants are making their big board. Who is ahead of the other one? It's going to come down to, in their pre-draft evaluation process, who do they feel is going to work harder and get better? Bottom line, that's who's number 1. If I feel Evan Neal is going to work harder and get better at it, then Evan Neal's number 1. If I feel Ikem Ekwonu is going to work past some of his struggles and get better, then Ikem Ekwonu's number 1. Like, really, it's the 50-50 coin toss that is who's going to work harder and rise above what they kind of struggle with. That's what it is going to be for me, and we don't have that information.
And I only, at 5 or 7, we have to come away with one of these two guys. We have to. Now, if they go top 4, it's an issue. But to me, you have to come away with one of these two guys and two guys only. We're going to talk about Charles Cross next. I don't want to come away from 5 and 7 with Charles Cross. I want Neal or Icky.
I am going to have an anxiety attack if the Giants do not walk away with the tackle night 1. That's the biggest fear. I mean, that frankly, that is why I'm nervous for 5 and 7. That is why I'm nervous for 5 and 7, because if you grab one of these two guys, I kind of automatically feel better and okay with whatever happens at 7, but it's, if we don't walk away with one of these two guys even after just pick 5, let alone picks 5 and 7, the anxiety level will rise on stream, and everybody will be witnesses to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest position in need. It's the only position they just flat out didn't address in free agency at all, besides Matt Conner, which is not addressing it.
No.
All right, next on this list is a player of a lot of debate, and that's Charles Cross out of Mississippi State, 6'5", 307 pounds, 2-year starter at Mississippi State in their air raid offense. Justin, he's got really good athleticism, and it led to really good results in the SEC. So the athleticism is his best attribute, is his athleticism. That being said, I do think he lacks the ideal strength, but the core of his strength is good. Like, he may not have the greatest punch, he may not have the best lower body to really go through guys, but in pass pro, he's got a good core of strength. And then, like, balance-wise, he's good, he's got, like, quick foot speed, not top-heavy at all. Like, he's got good balance. Let's talk about him as a pass blocker, who has been proclaimed the most polished pass blocker, and it pisses me off every time because you're looking at PFF data and you're not watching the film of Charles Cross. Maybe you all need to disagree with me, but I disagree with you vehemently if you think that he is the most polished pass blocker in this draft. He's not a more polished pass blocker than Evan Neal. I think right now he'd probably be a better pass blocker than Ekwonu, but Ekwonu can be a better pass blocker than Charles Cross, and I think he will be at the end of the day. His patience is his friend and his enemy in pass pro. His punch is very late, and when he does land it, the power is lacking. His hand placement is low and outside. His hand strength is good, so once he locks onto guys, he does stay connected. But he really struggles with the bull rush and loses big ground on it. Now, he utilizes the hop step, but he gives up ground when you do that, okay? Like, versus the bull rush, he is never the first one to punch. The punch is always brought to him, and that always worries me about a guy. Especially someone who played in the air raid with these wide splits that have them farther away from the QB and give it tougher angles to get to the quarterback for pass rushes. That worries me, like seriously worries me with Charles Cross. Okay, because he gets pushed back, and if you put him in regular splits, he would have been in the quarterback's lap a lot more, and he'd have a lot more pressures accredited to him. Okay, and that's why with versus Ekwonu versus Cross, it's like, I'd rather take the guy who's punch happy and get him to rein it in than the guy who doesn't punch and teach him how to punch. Like, that seriously worries me. In the passing game, he doesn't stay square after the second step and he gives up the edge. But again, those wide splits, like, he can get worked on outside and worked on the outside. The edge, again, they play in that air raid offense. The QB's stepping up. And again, like, watch Sam Williams of Ole Miss versus him. He worked him outside in. Okay, he opened that gate, he opened that hip of Charles Cross and worked outside in.
Yeah,
okay?
and Charles Cross opens up his hips like every rep.
Almost every single rep.
After that second step, or during that second step, his hips open up every single rep. And when your splits are so wide like that, I don't know why more pass rushers didn't work their way back inside more often, because when you're lining up so far away from the left guard and you open up your hips, that's inviting you to go into that lane.
Yeah. A lot of coaches want their guys to stay disciplined on the edge, where Ole Miss was like, Sam Williams, do what you got to do. And Sam Williams is a hell of a freaking talent.
Well, it worked. I mean, it worked for him.
That being said, that can be fixed, that the footwork part of it. And his foot speed and mirror ability really is beautiful. Like, that's like, the athleticism shows up in his feet. Like, his foot speed, his ability to mirror guys, it's really good. And he stays connected. Like, he really does stay well connected to players. And again, it leads to, I don't think he's has the quickest recovery, like IQ wise, but the foot speed leads to really good recovery reps. I think he plays with a skinny stance, and I think it leads to some high pad level time. In the run game, people knock him a lot in the run game. I don't knock him as much as other people in the run game. They just didn't run the ball a lot, and they didn't run the ball as a pro style. Like, I think he's an adequate run blocker overall, but he doesn't drive through guys. But, like, the footwork is solid. You see the core strength. I actually think he's going to become better as a run blocker in the NFL. So the thing that everyone praises him for is, like, I don't get it. And the thing that everyone knocks him for, I actually think is better. But again, here's where it ends up. I don't think Charles Cross is in the Ekwonu versus Neal debate. I don't think he's a top 10 tackle. And if there's a debate, to me, it's Cross versus Penning. I think those guys are close. They're different. Wow. But I think those guys he's closer to Trevor Penning than he is those other two. I'll say that.
First thing before I get into some of my thoughts, like, he's PFF's darling, but what went wrong in 2020? Now, he's only been starting for 2 years. What went wrong in 2020? Got 700 plus reps, 6 sacks, 5 hits, 33 hurries. What went wrong there? I didn't watch his 2020 tape. I'm sure Bobby didn't, and he got a lot better in 2021. But you're talking about Ikem Ekwonu, who's been starting for a little bit. You're talking about Evan Neal, who's played 3 different positions the last 3 years, and he's played really, really well. Versus Charles Cross, why is nobody talking about making it a knock on him that he only had really 1 good year of production? It's also
I hadn't seen those numbers. We actually watched him in our way too early draft preview, where I was like late first, early second, which is where I still kind of see him. But he looked like a pretty similar player. So maybe those was, like we were talking about, where it's like, those bull rushes, those outside in moves were just landing quicker.
Yeah. All right. So here's my thing with Cross, right? He's only an option if Neal, Ekwonu are off the board. I will be very, very upset, and I will be doubting. First night, first big decision that this new regime is going to make. If Ikem Ekwonu or Evan Neal are on the board and they take Charles Cross ahead of them, that will be the first big red flag of this Joe Schoen regime, and I'm worried about it because they deserve the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the quarterback. They deserve the benefit of the doubt with maybe going a little bit of the unconventional player on defense. We talked about that with Tremaine Edwards, right? Edmonds. We talked about that with Tremaine Edwards, how he was maybe a little bit unconventional interior linebacker first round. He's turned into a really, really good football player for them. You also have Wink Martindale, who's now a part of this process too, where he's done marvelous things with football players, right? But if there's one spot that Joe Schoen, Bobby Johnson, one spot that, is questionable, it's how they've been able to build and coach up an offensive line. Charles Cross as a player, I feel like the first second to second and a half of Charles Cross is bad, and I feel like everything after that point is good to great. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and that's why I struggled with it, and I put him above Penning as offensive tackle 3, because I'm not betting, I won't bet on it like I'll bet Ekwonu, but he does have the ability to be, I won't say great, but a really good offensive tackle in the NFL. Like, I think he has that ability with the athleticism, the foot speed, the core strength. I do think he has that ability. I'm just not betting on it necessarily.
Now, I kind of view Charles Cross, and I think I'm forcing myself to do this because if he's a reality, if he is the reality, I don't want to just be too, gloom. I do view Charles Cross in a little bit of a Tristan Wirfs light. Tristan Wirfs taught me a lot of things. Watching him in 2020, I did not like his feet. I think both of us really thought that he could be an NFL guard, and now here he is. He's an all-pro right tackle for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tom Brady, who has, one of the best pocket awareness in NFL history, is his quarterback, but also he is an all-pro, and he is really playing right. And he is playing right tackle. So, it's different than left tackle. But he's still a very, very good football player, right? I do view Charles Cross in a little bit of that light. Wirfs had issues with his feet, but he was explosive. And he got really good results at Iowa. And Charles Cross is looking to make kind of that same move if he is a Giant. He's going to make that same move to right tackle. And I do think he could be the tackle that benefits the most out of not having vertical sets out of all the first 3 guys that we talked about.
Yeah. I just don't view him as a top 10 player at the end of the day, and I don't want to reach because I know that need is huge, but I don't want to reach because that need is huge.
I think we have to do it. I think if they're both taken in the top 4, Ikem Ekwonu, Evan Neal, I think we have to do it.
Why? Aren't we building for the future?
I know.
Why pass on a player that you could think is great on defense to get a guy who might be a really good offensive tackle but might just be average?
I know. It sucks. If you get a Tristan Wirfs, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, if you get a Tristan Wirfs, I don't think he's Tristan Wirfs. Tristan Wirfs has much better strength, much better hand usage. Like, Tristan Wirfs was in that top 4 range for good reason with that class. And it was either the best or the second best out of those, whether you pick your poison with him or Andrew Thomas. But the results don't match the film with Charles Cross. And again, it's a lot easier to get an aggressive player and get him to reel it in, to get a guy who just doesn't punch, who stuffers versus the bull rush. Like you're not going to be like his best match. The best film he put up against versus an NFL player was a DeMarvin Leal, and I think DeMarvin Leal sucks. Baseball fans, it's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. New customers can bet just $5 on any team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take a swing at Stacks of Green with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Baseball Contest. New customers can play free for thousands in prizes with their first deposit. Pick a lineup of 2 pitchers and 8 batters while staying under the salary cap and rack up points for hits, runs, strikeouts, and more. How about that? What's the more? Go find out at DraftKings. It's safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code JOHNBOY. Bet just $5 and win $200 in free bets if your team wins their game. That's promo code JOHNBOY at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. 21 plus, restrictions apply, and will be trademarks used with permission. See show notes for details. Let's get into the next offensive tackle, and that's Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. 6'7", 325 pounds. That's the frame you're looking for, boys and girls. Justin, he's a good athlete, but I think he's got with very quick feet. Strength wise, really good upper body strength that shows up with he plays nasty. Like, he's a mauler. He plays with a nasty demeanor, which we'll talk about this conversation with Trevor Penning. In the pass game, his sets are very consistent, but he does open the gate, and I think he just doesn't stay connected, and he doesn't finish the blocks you want. And sometimes that's him torquing guys through the ground, and other times it's just him flat out losing. Like, he just needs to stay connected and use better hand replacement. I think his punch is pretty strong, but like that outside hand needs work, and he needs to keep the feet sliding over with it. Because with Trevor Penning, it's consistent. It's an initial win almost every time, and it just doesn't finish those. So that's going to lead to holding penalties. That's going to lead to him, throwing guys to the ground, and it's going to lead to him just flat out getting beat. In the run game, I think he's got good get off, but his feet do stop on contact, and he doesn't get that initial movement. But when his hands land well, they land outside, but he's got that good torque ability. So he has some really good run reps, but he's not like this, drive you back run blocker. And I think he just kind of gets out of the gates a little too fast. Like, he needs to bring it in and be a little more cool, calm, and collected. And that shows up at the second level working on linebackers. He has some really bad whiffs. I think Penning's a guy who is going to get better because, again, he does have that nasty demeanor, Justin, but I just don't know where I'm comfortable taking Trevor Penning. Obviously not in the top 5 or 7, but if they were in a trade back, I don't know. I feel like there might be better players on the board, but it's such a huge need, and I do think he'll be at least a solid to good player.
Yeah, I think there's a middle ground where the Trevor Penning disrespect goes a little too far, but also he doesn't deserve all the love that he was getting right after the Senior Bowl. You know what I mean? I think there's a middle ground, Yeah.
So he has, the reps where he's throwing guys to the ground, that pisses people off because there was time, he threw someone through the QB's legs at one point, and you can't be doing that. But the national demeanor you love. He just needs to harness it and learn to use it better. I love that about him. And again, he's a guy who gained a lot of, he's new to football. What was it? I think I saw he gained 100 pounds in 2 or 3 years at Northern Iowa.
all in school, yeah. Which
seems to be a trend for Northern Iowa. Their recruiters just go find these skinny dudes and you're going to be a good, Ellerson Smith type. So I like Penning.
I like him too, and I know how you can
especially with where he's
him.
Talked about right now.
I know how you can fix him. I know exactly how you can fix him. I think a lot of his problems are fixed if he can lower his base and stay lower in general. I think that's going to have to be the thing. If you're an NFL team, you're going to have to tell him. You know that drill where you're kind of running or you're driving your feet through and there's bars above your head.
Yeah.
You're running that. You're getting the muscle memory of staying low and not firing out of your stance high. Because Bobby, I think when you talk about, hey, he fires out of stance, he doesn't drive immediately. And I think that comes with, you need to get lower. Your base needs to be lower. I think you can play a lot more under control, not so wild, while also keeping the aggression aspect of your game if you play low. And I think if he does play lower, there isn't always going to be a need to throw guys on the ground. There isn't a need to lean into them and to fall on them. Win the play, move on to the next play. You can be physically aggressive without those pancakes. And I think that's the fine line with Trevor Penning. You can keep that aggression, but understand leverage and understand that football is a game where the lower man wins.
Yeah, people that want to lose his nastiness are honestly, they're annoying. I love that demeanor about him. He just needs to harness it and figure out a way to not throw it through. Essentially, just not throwing it through your QB's legs. That's really the only thing that needs to be fixed in it. Like, if he wants to push a guy's head into the ground afterwards and play dirty, I'm fine with that. But he just needs to, because what happens is he gets, 1, 2, 3 of his pass set, good start, and then that guy's able to push the corner and get to the QB, and instead of like trying to, connect or use your hands, he's just torquing him and throwing him to the ground, and that's how you break guys' legs. Hell, that's how Billy Price broke Nick Gates' leg. And
he almost did it at the Senior Bowl with Ritter. He threw an Oklahoma defender right into like Ritter's ankles, and he almost had a major injury. So 16 penalties this past year. So when you're averaging over 1 penalty a game, that's not good. I would love for him to go to a run-heavy team. I don't know if the Titans need a tackle. Since Conklin left, the Seahawks possibly at 40. Go take Trevor Penning at 9, Seattle. Go see how that works out for you, Pete Carroll, you psychopath. So I would love for him to go to like a run-heavy team, because I think he's definitely a lot better of a run blocker than pass blocker, and I think that could be the best way to maximize him as a pro.
When we did watch him at the Senior Bowl, I came away pretty impressed because it's like, okay, you're not going, your best competition is in Iowa State now. And he looked good down there. Like he looked like the best tackle down there.
He was the most fun player to watch in the Senior Bowl that entire week.
Yeah, like it was more than just those reps where he was throwing guys to the ground. Like he looked like the best tackle out there. And I think that speaks well to like, okay, this guy's going to grow and get better.
Yeah.
We'll have some growing pains, but I do think he'll grow. But I put him 4th because I just don't know if he has like the same foot speed as Charles Cross, athleticism. And I think Charles Cross just has a higher ceiling than Trevor Penning.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right, next on this list, so I have offensive tackle 5. Now this is a project player. This is Tyler Smith, offensive tackle out of Tulsa, 6'5", 324 pounds, 34-inch arms. He's a big, nasty, athletic offensive lineman who needs a lot of technical work. A lot of technical work. Like, he can't start year 1. I don't think he can start, at least not right away. Even though I do view him as a second rounder. He really mauls guys and dominates them. And he has the athleticism and the strength to go together. Like, his athleticism is really good, and he could just hang with anyone athleticism. And he has power in his hands to have those nasty punches, and he has that ability to drive through the hips, sink those hips and drive through guys in a good base most of the time. And he has like above average balance. I think his pad level rises too much. And in the pass pro, like his foot speed is good, but they click too much in pass pro, like really, really bad. He doesn't stay square at all, and he gives up the edge routinely, which leads to really, really bad holding calls. Really bad holding calls. Like
he had 13 penalties this past season.
Like, if you think Penning is bad, like Tyler Smith is on crack when it's penalty wise. And there's times where it almost like he should get like twice that much, but like the referee's like, we can't just keep calling holding penalties on this guy. They're really bad. His hands come both wide. Like when I say wide, like we'll talk about cross, like they come a little wide, they're at the top and a little high on the shoulder pads. With Tyler Smith, it's not wide. Like, he's almost hugging guys. They're so freaking wide.
Yeah, you usually ask offensive linemen to grab the breastplate and the the numbers on the front of the jersey. He's grabbing
it's like he's clapping from behind his back.
He's grabbing the number on the back of the jersey.
And it's late, and it gives him just real issues. But once he's locked on, he dominates the rep. He dominates the rep like nobody. Like he has the ability to be the 3rd best tackle in this class. With like his hand strength and torque ability is A+. His run punch is nasty and consistent, but it's nasty. And I actually think his feet are pretty good in the run game. Like, he keeps them driving. Like, he sinks his hip and just drives through D lineman and just totally resets the edge. Like, he just plays with a nastiness and an edge to him. But he needs a lot of work, Tyler Smith does. Like, he's a player that's fun, you fall in love with, but he's not good. Like, he's not good right now. And again, you need to work, like, see what his mindset is and see how willing he is to work. Because he has all the ability in the world. But he's not a good football player right now.
If you like Ikem Ekwonu, I feel like you also like Tyler Smith.
Yeah. I like Tyler Smith. I'm putting him 5th over someone who, guys who I think would be better right away, for a reason. But he needs to just totally rework his technique. Like, it needs so much growth. And again,
all right, Bobby.
Like, if his technique was average, he'd be a 1st-round player. If it was just average, he'd be a 1st-round player.
All right, Bobby. So Ikem Ekwonu, Evan Neal were taken in the top 4. You didn't take Charles Cross with 5 or 7. So Tyler Smith, are you going with him at 36? Because then what else? What the hell are we doing at tackle?
I would consider it. I think he'd be the only guy I'd consider at 36.
And I agree, because I feel like after these first 4 guys that we're talking about, maybe besides Faalele, but there's a question about his weight. Besides those 5 guys, I don't know if I would want or consider anybody else, to be a realistic option to start at right tackle. Not drafting, but, just a realistic option to be the future right tackle.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with you. Faalele is a more difficult conversation we're going to talk about next. But yeah, I fully agree with you.
And the thing about Tyler Smith is, I feel like you would have to take him at 36 if you don't go tackle 5 or 7. That's even if
he's not
there.
lasting to the 3rd.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You would have to take him at 36, and then you're passing on other players that you probably really like at 36 too. Tyler Smith, would he be worth it at 36? Like, is he among those players where, regardless of whether we take tackle at 5 and 7, is he one of those players that's in the mix at 36 with like EBKD, Christian Watson, secondary player, et cetera, Arnold EBKD?
I think it's risky. But I'd be willing. Let's talk about him moving the guard, because a lot of people say he's going to move the guard.
I think it gets less risky if you draft him as an interior guy.
Here's the thing: it's not. A lot of times when it's moving a tackle to guard, it's like he just doesn't have the athleticism to hang with NFL pass rushers. With Smith, his technique needs total work. So if that issues don't go away at guard for Tyler Smith.
He's also 21, so you can look at that as a pro for moving interior or pro for staying at tackle. He just turned 21. He's one of the youngest players in the draft. So,
yeah, I just want to see him play tackle because he has all that ability to be a good tackle. This isn't a guy who's just not athletic enough to play tackle in the NFL and tackle such a top-heavy in the draft position when you look at the good ones in the NFL. It's his technique needs a ton of work. So you put him at guard, and his technique is still going to need total work.
But he can win in a phone booth. I mean, you like that phrase? I learned what that phrase was this draft season. If you can win in a phone booth and you can win in that tight space, I feel like your technique is going to need his technique, you literally said he's not good right now. Those were the words that you said. If you want Tyler Smith to be a better football player right now, and he can win in that phone booth, and he is so strong and he can win in those tight spaces, then the work that he's going to need to do at guard is going to be a lot less than the work that he needs to do at tackle.
Yeah, which is why I think 36 is an option, because worst case scenario, you put him at guard. And I think, I love Tyler Smith, I really do, but he needs a ton of work.
Yeah.
All right, next on this list, we're going to do Daniel Faalele, offensive tackle out of Minnesota. I think this guy has gotten more slander than he deserves, but he's 6'8". You heard that right, and here's the real part. 384 pounds with 35-inch arms. Former rugby player who's new to the game. Justin, his frame and his long arms are just imposing as a player. With his frame, I think his athleticism is fine, but it's not good athleticism. But he's got natural strength. He's not just a big body. He has natural strength, and it shows up every single down. In the pass, as a pass blocker, Justin, you can't put him in a vertical set. One, Bobby Johnson doesn't like to do vertical sets, and at right tackle, you would be asked to do that a lot less. So you put him in those 45-degree sets, he does a lot better. His feet can click a little bit, but I think that's going to get better. Again, he's new to the game. His footwork isn't, totally destroyed like Tyler Smith. No, it's you see the room for the growth there. And I think overall, his footwork is fine. With those long arms, he has a patient punch that lands well, and his hand fight is great. His hand fight, is advanced. Which
Snatch, trap, and sit.
Yeah. That snatch and trap. And what I like is, sometimes with the big guys, they're not nasty. When I look at when you pancake a guy, lay down on top of him. Get on top of him. And he does that. And that's something I like on him. But again, once his hands are on guys, they're locked on. He's won the rep. And in the run game, he just naturally moves guys with his strength and athleticism. He does have some false steps, again, which can be fixed and an inconsistent get-off. And his punch will come in too wide and allow guys to his chest. But if the defender doesn't win, just initial win, he finishes and torques well. Even working to linebackers, he works well. If he wasn't 384 pounds and I wasn't so deathly afraid that he's not going to last physically in the NFL health-wise, I think he would be and play at 36. But that weight scares me. It's like, I don't know if you're going to be able to stay healthy. And it sucks to knock a guy, and we don't know medical stuff like that, but it's just using common sense that's a struggle. And again, you're not going to put him in vertical sets. He's not going to look at good at one-on-one reps at the Senior Bowl, but he is, I think, a solid player. And
the thing is that Bobby, we saw him at the Senior Bowl. He didn't look 384 pounds. He
carries it well. He's not like he's not a tub of lard.
So like, how much weight can he cut down? Because I do think,
I don't know if he can any.
That's exactly it. It's like, well, you want to ask this guy to lose 15, 20 pounds.
Not like Becton, where you could ask him to lose weight. I don't know if Raymond could lose weight.
Correct. So maybe that's where it's different. That, hey, because he wears it better and, he doesn't look that big. Hey, maybe that's better. I don't know. I actually felt kind of dumb when I said that about Becton. I was like, I just think he's too big. Can he keep the weight off? Can he, is he going to be able to stay healthy? I said that and I felt kind of dumb, but it was actually, one of my better draft takes. So, it's there about Faalele. And the thing about this time of the year, Bobby, this is just me using my common sense. This time of the year and this time of these young men's life, they're in the best shape of their life. Hopefully. They're in the best shape of their life. They're lean, they're going to look good. If they need to increase their weight, they're going to be heavy. If they need to lose some weight, they're going to be light. So they're at the best shape of their life. And then after Faalele gets drafted, are you going to be able to stay where you are? Are you going to gain 10 pounds? So that's the fear about him. But I really do like him, Bobby. I really do.
He has good film.
Yeah, I was a lot more happy with him versus, watching that film breakdown that you did versus when I left the Senior Bowl. Because like you said, he was asked to do some things at the Senior Bowl that probably he won't be asked to do at the NFL level, depending on what team he goes to. NFL teams do have the tendency to use guys, kind of in an incorrect, wrong way. He just started playing the game in 2016 at IMG Academy, and he opted out of the 2020 season. So that's an entire year that he basically lost. I hope Daniel Faalele gets at a point in his NFL career that, number one, that he's healthy, and then number two, he can kind of just let go and play. Because I do think that he's kind of a technical player. At 384 pounds, he's kind of a finesse player, which doesn't make sense. You would think that guy would be an earth mover. And he is a mover because of how big he is. I don't know if he's an outwardly aggressive player, but if he can just let go and play, and that's going to come with reps. It's going to come with playing in a game. It's going to come with more experience. I think he can be a really good pro, but it's just, can you stay healthy and can you develop into that?
Yeah, if you promised me he'd be healthy, I'd be a lot less anxious about pick 5 and 7 because I would be fine with Faalele at 36, even though I think he can slip into the first round. Because I think for all those reasons, some team's going to overlook it and be like, he's new, he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body. I did play rugby, so maybe that adds some wear and tear. But
what are you playing in high school?
I don't know. It is in his bio. They played fucking rugby.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was either he showed up to IMG Academy. So this is actually interesting. If the Giants draft him, we'll look into more of his backstory. So was he playing rugby before he came to IMG Academy? So I don't know how much of a talking point that is.
Well, he's from Australia, right?
Well, there you go. Well, then he played rugby there and then came to IMG Academy, played football, started that in 2016.
All right, last guy we're going to hit on. Actually, read it out, Justin, and then we're going to hit the last guy.
All right. So, we got to talk about Raimond. And, we've talked so much about Raimond, by the way, about, being all about ED, erectile dysfunction, but Raimond is all about also weight management, sexual health, hair and body. There's so much stuff that Raimond does to help out men like you, me, and Bobby. And if you're a nice lady listening, it's going to help out your man if you got a man in your life. So, Bobby, I heard from a little bird that Raimond will help you last in the bedroom as long as our draft stream is going to be. Do you know how long our draft stream is going to be?
20 hours.
Yeah, close to 20 hours. And it's a rumor that Raimond can help you with the ED department and also the PE department. No, not physical education, not performance enhancers, but premature ejaculation. Premature ejaculation. What do you think about that?
I think if that's an issue for you, you should take it.
And if you want to last as long as our draft stream does, you got to use those Raimond swipes. They're clinically proven to help you last longer in bed. There's no prescription needed. PE treatments are safe, effective, and used by millions of men. There's free 2-day shipping. Raimond has a nice little discreet policy too. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to getraimond.com/world. Talking Giants versus the world. Today, if approved, you'll get $10 off your first order. That's getraimond.com/world. Use those Raimond swipes to last as long as our draft stream. Some are saying.
Thank you, Getro Man.
Thank you.
Getro Man, away. Last guy we're going to talk about, Bernard Rainmann, offensive tackle out of Central Michigan. 6'7", 305 pounds. Talk about new to the game. He only played 2 years at offensive tackle. He moved from tight end, added all that weight. Now he's an offensive tackle. Like you look like he was a tight end at Central Michigan. Tough player to evaluate. Like, here's one thing. One, he's new to the position, so he's raw. But he worked in a 1-step and 3-step drop offense, so he just kind of lacks experience, like protecting the edge a ton. But he's an overall good athlete with natural strength that does show up. But he's a raw player, Justin, that just needs serious technical work. But if there's one guy who's like, you need serious technical work, it's like, okay, well, he's brand new to the position, so you can work with it. But I'm not a huge fan. Like, he plays the high pad level and he bends at the hips. Like, his feet are very quick, but they do need work. And again, he has no vertical set experience, and that's going to lead to really early issues with speed edges in the NFL. And then when he's playing those 45 sets, he just doesn't get to his landmarks in time. And like the feet click, but he does a good job mirroring versus speed. Once he's there, he does a good mirroring job for his speed, but his punches are more hooking up rather than a punch. And again, once he's locked on guys, he mirrors well. Can leave his chest exposed and be a victim of the bull rush. But he in the run game, he just has a natural ability to move guys. Like, he doesn't lean at all, but he does have a bad first step, which leads to catching in high pad level. But he works the second level well. So there's room for improvement, but I'm just not the biggest Bernard Rainmann fan, Justin.
Yeah, me neither. I think speed to power is going to give him a lot of trouble. Where, yeah, he'll compete with the speed right away, but then those power moves and when he get to his chest, that's going to give him issues. I mean, the thing that you're going to bank on if you're an NFL team is, hey, you can add weight. You can get stronger, and certainly, Rainmann has that frame right now. Do you think that he can get stronger? So you're basically gonna invest in that. He has the technical aspect of his game. It's surprising to see how far along he is technically, knowing that he is so new to the game. His first full year of starting was this year in 2021. And I think you said after the 2019 season he converted to tight end. So he's a good athlete, really good athlete, really good technical player. Has some moments physically where he can get outworked, but like I said, if you're an NFL team, you're banking that can come.
Yeah, you don't come in and start him right away. Like, he's going to need to sit and work on his craft, and I think that will benefit him a ton. But he does need a ton of work. Like, I'm not taking him in the second round. Like, to me, he's a third round player. All
right, so Bobby, here's my question to you, because the Giants need to walk away with the right tackle in this draft, right? And a right tackle that, if you draft him, he kind of has to start day one, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And if you're not going cross at 5 or 7, then what are you doing? What's your blueprint?
If they stick at 5 and 7, and Neal and Ekwonu, to me, the blueprint is praying that Ekwonu or Neal fall. And I think one will. I really do think one will.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because I'm not going to take a guy who I don't think is a top 10 player in a draft that has a weak top 10 overall just because I need a right tackle. I'm sorry. Like, that's how you end up with guys like Eric Flowers. And again, I'm not comparing Cross to Eric Flowers, but that's how you do that. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. We all talk about best player available until it comes time to take best player available in a tough decision.
I'm nervous.
I am too. I'm anxious as hell. So Trayvon Walker. I'm not very high on Trayvon Walker. If the Giants take Trayvon Walker, I will understand it. Okay? And it'll be like, okay, he's got to grow into this. He needs to learn. He's got a lot to learn. He needs a lot of room for improvement. But you see the ability. I just don't see it with Cross. Okay, maybe I'll look stupid, come back and look stupid, and 2 years from now I'll say I don't like whatever T3 is in the class, and people are like, you didn't like Charles Cross, But I just don't see it with Cross as a top 10 player. I don't think he's ever going to be a great player, and I think guys taking the top 10 should have the ability to be a great player.
You haven't been really very wrong yet on a lot of your guard tackle takes, especially the top guys that you watch. So, my thing is that, hey, I'm just gonna bet that this guy can make, if he's drafted by the Giants, I'm gonna bet that this guy is gonna make a Tristan Wirfs kind of transformation. That's it, because he had questions.
But Wirfs didn't have much of a transformation. It was that Wirfs didn't have vertical set experience. It was just Wirfs didn't have a ton of like things that he had done, but it was because of the offense he played in.
Well, we're gonna talk more about it Wednesday on our live on YouTube. Podcast apps will get it at around 8 p.m. on Wednesday, but our live annual mock draft episode, 6 p.m. on Wednesday on YouTube.
Draft day and mock draft, my favorite episode of the year. All of this work builds into that one episode, so I'm very excited for that. So, again, stick with us for the whole draft. Stay in our stream. We're going to have the best stream, Giants-related wise. So watch ours, enjoy it with us. We'll have the most fun and be the best. I really do believe that. So we appreciate you guys. Enjoy draft week. We'll see you back here for our draft day mock draft episode. We appreciate you guys. See you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.